Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Hello, this is the next part of the lecture on morphology. In the previous lecture, we talked about the formal classification of the morpheme, which is classified into free morpheme and bound morpheme, and we defined the free morpheme as the morpheme that can stand alone with full meaning, while the bound morpheme or attached morpheme is the morpheme which can only be attached or added to other free or other bound morphemes in order for the meaning to be full. In regard of the formal classification of the morpheme, there is the the lexical and functional morphemes, which depends on functional classification. So according to the functional classification of the morpheme, I mean the meaning classification of the morpheme, again we will have two types of the free morphemes, not the attached or the bound morphemes, the free morphemes, the morphemes that can stand alone with meaning. Now here the meaning can be lexical or content or functional words. Now the lexical morphemes are usually free, not always, and they have the full meaning in the word or in the morpheme itself, the full meaning. Sometimes we call them the content words like nouns, morphemes like nouns, adjectives, verbs, adverbs, and so on and so forth. For example, if we take the word morpheme is a noun, and this morpheme, if we cut it down, it will be morph and eem. Morph is the free morpheme, while eem is the bound morpheme, and the last one, which is s of the plural, again is a bound morpheme. Now this morph, which is a free morpheme, has the full meaning, while eem and s are the functional morphemes. The functional morphemes, they can only add to the meaning, not the main part of meaning, but they can add to the meaning. And this is the difference. The lexical morpheme is the morpheme which has the full meaning of a given morpheme, whether word or not, or more. So while the functional morpheme or morphemes are the morphemes or words that bring a function inside of the word, a function. For example, the s in morphemes is the s of plural. Its function is to show plurality, while the eem is its function or its modification to the meaning is to show the abstractness of the concept of morpheme, while the morph is the main root morpheme, which has the full meaning. Now functional morphemes are morphemes like the conjunctions and but, however, and so on and so forth, prepositions in, on, with, under, above, and so on and so forth, articles, pronouns, and all the inflectional morphemes. Now these can assist, help, modify, or add to the meaning, but they do not change the meaning. They do not change the meaning. Now, bound morphemes and derivational morphemes bound morphemes, can be according to the function, according to the meaning, can be either derivational or inflectional. Now, what is the derivational morpheme, and what is the inflectional morpheme? Now, by nature, derivation is the process where we get new words from other old ones, which means we produce new words through the process of derivation. The product of this process is the bound morpheme, which should be attached to other morphemes, and these bound morphemes can create new words out of or with a free morpheme. For example, pay, we add payment. This attachment, which is meant, is a derivational morpheme, which is bound, of course, added to the word, to the verb pay, to become payment as a free morpheme, as a noun, which is a new word class. Quick again is an adjective. Quickly is an adverb. So by adding the bound morpheme, which is ly, it'll be like quickly. Again, the ly is a derivational morpheme, of course, which is bound. God, goddess. Again, the s, this is a bound morpheme, which is attached to the free morpheme God to have another noun. So this is a derivational morpheme. The derivational morpheme or morphemes are those morphemes that are bound morphemes and that can be added to the free morphemes through the process of derivation. Now, while the inflectional morphemes are the morphemes that can help the words to change their grammatical function only, which means to add to the meaning, to modify the meaning through derivation, through inflectional suffixes or inflectional morphemes. So they do not change, they only modify, and the modification is at the level of the grammatical function, such as cars, the s of plural, do, done, the past participle of a given word, of a given verb, cold, coldest, the degree of comparison. So these, the plural, the ed past participle, or the ed past as well, and the est of the comparison are all regarded as inflectional morphemes that can modify the meaning. Of course, there are 9 in number. You've taken them in previous stages. They are the s plural, s possessive, ed past, ed past participle, ing or present participle, est of the comparison degrees, and so on and so forth. So these are the inflectional morphemes. These are the only inflectional morphemes in English. Of course, they have certain differences between the inflectional morphemes and the derivational morphemes. The differences are pointed out in 3 points. Point number 1, derivational morphemes can change the part of a speech or word class, or word class. For example, as we said, pay plus ment, it will be payment. Payment, the product, is a noun, while pay, the free morpheme to which the bound morpheme ment is attached, is not a noun. It is a verb. So the change of the word class or part of a speech is going to be from a verb into a noun, and so on and so forth. Not only this, it could be different processes and different parts of a speech. And the same thing with quick, which is an adjective. By adding ly, it will be quickly, which is an adverb, and so on and so forth. This is not happening to the morphemes when we have the inflectional processes. I mean inflectional morphemes. Why? Because they only change or modify the grammatical function, which has nothing to do with meaning. So they do not change the part of a speech. Point number 2, they can pile up in the word. The derivational morphemes can pile up in the word, can be attached to the free morpheme in more than one attachment, one derivational morpheme. For example, if we say norm is a noun, normalize again is a verb. This alize is a derivational morpheme which is used to indicate a verb, normalize. Then normalization, okay, normalization, and this tion is is a bound morpheme, a derivational bound morpheme which is used to indicate the noun of a process, for example. Okay, so these 3 or 2 and could be more derivational morphemes can be piled up in one word, and this feature or this point cannot be done in the inflectional morphemes. Inflectional morphemes close off the word. No other morphemes are added after them. If we say car, cars, there is no other morpheme after the S of plural. Or if we say play as a verb, plays again as a verb with the third person singular. We cannot say playsing, putting ing. Never. They close off the word or the morpheme. Point number 3, they come at the beginning, middle, and at the end of a given word. I mean, the derivational morphemes come at the beginning. For example, in the word large, it could be enlarge, and enlarge as a verb can have the attachment of a noun. For example, enlargement. Okay, so they come in at the beginning and at the end, and could be in the middle of the word. Okay, while this is not applicable to the inflectional morphemes. Why? Because they come only at the end of a given word. For example, we say car, cars, house, houses, play, player, quicker, clear, clearer, clearest, quickest, the fastest, and so they come at the end of the morpheme only. So these are the main 3 crucial points of differences between derivational and inflectional morphemes. This is found in your textbooks. This is a useful way to remember all these different types of morphemes. Morphemes can be free and bound. Free and bound, this is called the formal classification. Why? Because we follow the form. The free can be classified into lexical and functional. Lexical and functional in terms of the meaning or in terms of function. While the bound can be derivational or inflectional in terms of the processes where we get words from or morphemes from. Now, morphemes is not always easy to find. There must be problems in the morphological description when we try to describe a morpheme, for example. It is not an easy job. Of course, there must be, there is certain kind of difficulties. Okay. Now, the problematic issue is that that most languages have words that cannot be analyzed. This is the point. Most languages have words that cannot be analyzed according to the morphological rules, such as plural, s, z, and is. This is a very important point, and that's why in the in part 1 lecture I told you there is a great problem when it comes to deal with words and the definition of words. Okay, we cannot describe or analyze the given morphemes or words in any given language. Why? Because most of the words or morphemes cannot be analyzed in the morphological rules of a given. Why? Because of different processes of the words where language take or receives words from. The best example is the borrowed words and morphemes. Now, for example, camel, which is the word taken from Arabic jamal, kafan from the Arabic as well. Now, camel and kafan, not always an easy job to be analyzed according to the morphological rules of English. Yes, they can easily be analyzed according to the Arabic language. Why? Because it is the source language, and they are its words. But it is difficult when it comes to the English language. Why? Because they are borrowed. They are foreign words as to the English language. Sometimes the morphological rules of the borrowing language are applied, but this takes so long time, and other times they cannot. Why? Because they are not compatible with the rules of the borrowing language. This is one of the most significant problems. There are other problems which are not mentioned in your book, so we should not mention them here. The final point in this lecture, which is morph and allomorphs. As we have mentioned in the chapter of phonology, we said that there is an abstract concept regarding the unit of each of linguistic sub-branches, and there is the concrete concept. Now, there must be a kind of difference between these two extremes. The abstract concept, which is found in the mind, which is processed through certain electrical pulses by the brain, while the concrete concept is the dynamic mechanical concepts that can excuse the pulses or the electrical pulses coming from the mind. So these are the one is complementary to the other. When dealing with the abstract concept, we add to them im, the bound morpheme im, to be phoneme. morpheme, and so on and so on, like zeme, grapheme, and so on and so forth. While saying phone, it is the physical representation of sound. Morph is the physical representation of the morphemes, the physical representation of the morphemes. So by physical here, the way how it is written and pronounced, If we take these example, bus, buses, okay, girl, girls, is baby, babies, and sheep, sheep, which is the same. And this is the word sheep is one of the problematic issues in morphological description. Now, these three kinds of the S plural, S is Z, is again, S as well. These are the different reflections or physical representations of the one morpheme, which is S plural. Of course, this is included. The irregular morpheme is included as well. And how many irregular morphemes of plural do we have? So many. These so many morphemes are included in the S plural morpheme. So these sets or these different morphemes are regarded as the set of S plural morpheme. This set, by definition, is called allomorph or allomorphs. Allomorph of the S plural. Allomorph of the S plural means all the morphs of the S plural, which is the morph, the morph S, the morph is, the morph Z, the morph E from sheep, the morph X from the morph EN from oxen, the morph is from houses, and so on and so forth. All these are called the allomorphs of a given morpheme. And this is one example from the S plural. You can deal with the S of the third person singular. You can deal with the ing form. You can deal with all the morphemes, whether free or bound. That's all for the lecture, for the second lecture in morphology. Thank you very much. If you have any question, any inquiry, you may contact me online. The study questions are so important, so you have to pay attention. Thank you very much. That's all for me.